Hey folks, Phil the B-Man here. I'm with Ted Turnbull from Prairie Sun Beeswax, and he's agreed to show us a few things in his business. And Ted also, I've known your family since I was a little kid, and your dad used to come and inspect my grandma's bees, and he'd tell me that I could be a beekeeper one day. And I'm still working on it.
Yeah, he told me that same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I classify yet.
Yeah. Well, your dad was a good beekeeper, so if we can aspire to maybe be up to his standard, we'd be good.
You betcha.
So I brought my wax and slum for you to process, and maybe tell me a bit about how you do that.
Sure.
And how, like, to me, the biggest part of this whole deal is I gotta bring my wax to someone I trust, because I really don't know what I got there.
Yeah.
And I got to bring it to someone who will get all the wax out and then pay me for it. So tell me about that.
So the process begins with a receipt of what we've brought in. So you know exactly, and we know exactly what you've dropped off. There is no question mark as far as there was 2 pallets of frames or 3 pallets of frames. So that's where we start with that trust process. The frames come into 2 tanks where we actually use steam to help lift that wax off of the frames. And this is our tank that we do our frames in and our slum. So once these frames are done, so what we do is we knock the slum off. That gets put in through the wood chipper. All this slum gets put into the bottom, and that's what we press out with the 60,000 pounds. So we make sure that we've got all the wax out of it and it's nice and dry. Plastic frames, a little bit more. Most of the time they clean up just fine, but you have to do them a little bit longer, and then the slum will fall off. But if you don't do it long enough, the slum will stick to it. So, yeah. The wood particles or the wood frames to come out of the tank, and then we use a 60,000 pound press and steam in order to press the wax out of the slum. We get a very dry slum, and we're quite happy. We like our slum so that we can't even hardly get it to stick together. It's so dry. And this allows it to burn in our boiler really, really well. Okay. It burns almost like coal. So, yeah.
And that would be mostly like just bee cocoons.
Bee cocoons, yep. Old frames,
yep.
You betcha.
Okay.
And then the wooden ware, like I said, we put it through wood chipper.
This is what the frames look like after they've been through the wood chipper. And then you'll use that as a source of heat for your boiler.
Yep. We tried it in our smokers, but we ended up with lots of fun. Anything that comes in as a cappings is nice and clean. So it can go into just a dump tank. And a dump tank then can handle 5 barrels at a time. This tank here can handle 18 barrels full. And then we have a chopper in there that chops it up, mixes it, makes sure it's good and hot, and then we put it into a settling tank. So I don't want to pay you, same trust thing, I don't want to pay you for dirt. So we want to make sure it's clean when we make out our final invoice. So we put it into a settling tank, we wash it, and then we let all of that dirt and crud come out. You'll see some buckets here, so we make sure that crud, we even weigh that out. So we scrape all the stuff off the bottom of the block, so you get every drop of wax that you bring is processed, weighed, and paid for. So once it's nice and clean and clarified, we pump it into a scale tank. Now this tank allows us to be able to process somebody's wax, keep it in a liquid form, which speeds up the process, but we get a very accurate measurement of what their wax weight is. So it'll be all combined, so all the wax coming out of their frames will come into a settling tank. All the wax out of their cappings will be into a separate settling tank. So because there is different charges for each. So we make sure that that's weighed out appropriately. So we also, after we've done...
So we lean on this tank, that changes the length there.
You betcha.
You see that in the background, Dave? Cool.
Yeah, and we also, after each person's wax, we actually scrape the floor, and that gets thrown into the tank, which is probably a little over the top, but we have to scrape the floor anyway, and we thought, you know what, let's just get into a policy where we're done that person's wax, the floor gets scraped, it gets thrown into the tank. So we're really confident, and we bring people in to see exactly how the wax is done all the time, because this is a trust business, and it's very important for us to be very open with people on how the process works. Yeah. So it takes a lot of heat. It takes a lot.
Okay, here we are with the final product. Tell us what you got.
So these are a 30-pound block, which we do a lot of, but we have different buyers have different weights of blocks, and we do that. We have some that like a 25, some that like a 40, and we have one buyer who likes an exact 20. It's for an industrial use, and so they don't have to break it up in order to fit their mix. This is the exact same lot as this. It looks different just because of the plastic. So that's a beautiful yellow, bright, good for candle making, and that's the cleanliness that we get out of it with our system. So we're very pleased with how that works.